So this is the latest tablet here from Teclast, the T10, otherwise known as the Master T10. It's an Android 7.0 tablet that is powered by a MediaTek 8173. This is a hexa-core CPU, and the graphics is a PowerVR GX 6250. It has 4 GB of RAM, and you get approximately 50 GB of free space on the 64 GB of internal storage. So the tablet weighs 550 grams, it's 10.1 inches, and around 8 millimeters thick. Made out of a metal unibody here. Build quality is very good. We do have some plastic along the top for the antenna, Bluetooth, and GPS reception. This camera on the rear here is 8 megapixels, autofocus camera. So you would have seen there that the fingerprint reader is in an awkward location. Now you can access it with your middle or index finger when you're holding it. Unlock time is around 2 to 3 seconds, so it isn't fast, it's quite slow, and it works around 8 to 9 times out of 10 only. The ports are also in an odd location, which I don't particularly like. I'd rather have them on the side of the device. So we have micro HDMI out that supports up to 1080p, micro USB 2 in there for charging and data. Yes, OTG does work on this, and then the 3.5mm headphone jack, and then a slot for the micro SD card. So that micro SD card slot does support up to 128 gigabytes, at least that I know of, that I've tested, but it should support even up to 250 plus cards, and you can set it up as either the internal storage to install applications on, or as portable storage here. The buttons on the top right hand side, these are made out of metal. They've got a good feeling to them, and they are so much better than the likes of the plastic ones we used to have on the X98 series. Teclast also made a wise move of moving the best camera, the 13 megapixel one, to the front of the tablet. I love to see more manufacturers do this, and next to that is an ambient light sensor. And then lastly we have the speakers. So left and right of the device you'll see these tiny little grills here. The loudness of them isn't that bad at all. I'll give you a sample of them later on in this video. So the screen is a fully laminated sharp panel. It has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, maximum brightness of 418 lux, so it is very bright. You can make it out in direct sunlight because it is fully laminated as well, so you don't have as much of a problem with reflections as you do on the non-laminated panels. Colors look good, black's quite deep. Standard kind of IPS panel really here. I do have on my unit though a little bit of glow around the edges, mostly on the right hand side, but overall a really decent panel used in this tablet here. So as I mentioned there in the beginning, it's running Android 7, so it's not the latest version, and the security patch of it is dated from April the 5th this year, so it's not the latest there either, which is a little bit of a shame. There have been some over-the-air updates, just to fix a few bugs and things, and you can do split screen with apps that support it there, just like other Android 7 tablets, so it's good to see they have that enabled at least. Now the ROM is a stock Android ROM, which is great, so we don't have any bloated launchers on this, and you also notice that there is a few bloatware applications. You can uninstall all of them apart from this Chinese security app. That's the only one that I could not remove. Play Store is there, of course, working fine, and no issues with that. The overall ROM performance I've found to be decent. It's quite smooth, swapping between applications as well. Not a problem with that, it's quick. I have noticed that there is sometimes a little bit of animation lag or stutter just in the launcher here. It doesn't seem to be as smooth as some other devices. Now this could be because of the high resolution, having a bit of an impact there on performance. And if we go into Chrome 2, rather heavy website here, scrolling performance on that seems very smooth indeed. Loads in pages quick too. The Master T10 does support GPS, but unfortunately there is no hardware compass in here, so it's not as useful. And I noticed that the GPS lock does take a long time, and you only lock on to a few satellites. It is very slow, and the performance really is not good at all. It's very poor for GPS. I wouldn't be buying this model for its GPS. Definitely not. Now when we have a look at benchmark scores, they're typical scores for this chipset here. That is the Geekbench 4 result, and this is the compute result here. And then the Antutu score of 80,000, which is not bad at all. And here's a look at that internal storage. The speeds here are quite adequate for an eMMC 4.5.1 spec drive. Now the wireless, I had a bit of an issue on the first ROM, well the first update that came through, and on my old router, I had wireless AC hooked up. But for some reason, I feel it's my own router's problem that I've got here. I can't seem to jump on to the wireless AC. I've had a few issues with other devices too, but on wireless N, getting the maximum speeds possible here. So thanks to the plastic they put on the top here, which you commonly see on other devices, the wireless reception and range is really quite decent here. I've had no issues in the studio apartment here and moving through other rooms, getting good coverage. Most of the time it's still at full strength. So what are ebooks and PDFs like on this system? I find they perform quite good, and it does look really nice on the screen text because of that 2560 by 1600 resolution. So I have a very large PDF file here, and when I skip ahead, you'll see that it's not the fastest. So it does take a little bit of time sometimes to search through those ones. So if you have a massive PDF file, it certainly will not win any speed records, but because of that resolution and the screen PPI, text I find does look really quite good on this. So the battery life turned out to be better than expected. On average, I'm getting around 7 hours to 7.5 hours with the brightness set to 40%. But when I was watching some movies on it, some light Chrome use, and the brightness set to approximately 30% where it is at the moment, perhaps a little less there, I've got 7 hours and 27 minutes here with around 30% battery still left. So that's excellent result there. And it takes approximately 4 hours to fully charge the tablet. So it's not the fastest to charge. Now onto the loudspeakers. Thankfully, they have improved things on their Android tablets, at least Teclast, because the X98 series, they had some poor speakers on them. They just weren't very loud at all. Now these aren't great, but at least they've got loudness, but they do tend to distort a little bit at 100% volume. Anyway, let's have a listen to how they sound. Now the 3.5mm headphone jack, it outputs loud sound. However, I've noticed there is a tiny little bit of static present. And this is another demanding title here, Hit. Now don't believe this one is actually running in the full resolution. I believe it's just scaled up from 1080p or even 720p. There are some little pauses now and then, but overall, really playable. And all the games I've tested do run well. However, I did run into a problem with one game. It's Asphalt Extreme. It just will not run for some reason on this tablet. It keeps crashing when it goes to check my online profile. And there we go, crashed again. And now for a quick sample of the front-facing camera, which is 13 megapixels, larger than the 8 we get on the rear, but it doesn't have an autofocus on the front here. But for video calls and things, you can see that the quality is actually quite good. Okay, so just to summarize here, the performance is a lot better than I expected because the resolution of 2560 by 1600 isn't exactly a light or easy resolution to drive Android games and things, but they all are playable with good frame rates. Even those games there that do run at native screen resolutions, like Mortal Kombat X, playable frame rates all the time, it's over about 30. You do see the occasional stutter. So the screen is the key feature here, the best feature of it, that it's a really nice screen. It's nice and bright, good blacks, it's sharp. So you've got good amount of storage on here, 64, you're not limited to 32, 4 gigabytes of RAM. Overall, the spec is really good. It's thin, relatively light, 550 grams. And overall, I feel for the price you are getting a good tablet, but it does have, of course, its cons. The fingerprint reader is slow, the location of it's quite poor, and a little bit clumsy, I feel, when you're unlocking. It takes around 2 to 3 seconds, so it's not great. And then, of course, the port location along the top to charge and also HDMI out. I feel they should have put it on one of the sides, would have been a little bit better there. So the speakers are loud, but they do distort. They're not high quality speakers. And there is a tiny little bit of static over the 3.5mm headphone jack. But apart from that, build quality of the screen, the battery life, it does come recommended if you're looking for a cheaper Android 7 tablet out of China. Thanks a lot for watching this review, and I hope to catch you back in the channel soon. Bye for now.